What happens when outcomes are no longer predictable? When teachers no longer feel protected and when students begin to believe that their effort doesn't even matter? And when the frustration rises inside of an unsustainable system, when the voices and the questions get louder and louder. In this video, we're going to unpack the real questions that real teachers are asking all over America that have been sent in to Teacher Talk. And we're going to tell you what those questions reveal about the deeper instability inside the modern classrooms. And the number one thing that consistently comes up over and over and over at Teacher Talk is, should teachers wear body cams? And so I'm going to turn that over to whoever thinks they have the right answer for that tonight.
I'm on the fence. I would say there are circumstances that I definitely think it would have been beneficial to have a body cam. But then there are other circumstances where, little Johnny doesn't ever do anything wrong, and the family may not like what I say when I correct them. Even if my correction is correct and respectful, they may not be happy with how I reprimand or speak to their little Johnny.
For sure. What do you think, Doc?
I don't know about body cams, but I'm not opposed to classroom cameras. Again, I've been through it in another county where it was actually a parent had to request it. This was a special needs classroom, so it was a little bit different because some of the kiddos in there had limited communication. So the parents just wanted kind of that peace of mind of knowing that if they needed to check on something, it was there. But just living the life for the last almost 30 years, I just think that there's pros and cons, but sometimes it is great, just like Carol was saying, when you can say, kind of here's the proof, here's what goes on.
So, what do you think the implications would be if teachers had body cams or if there were video cameras in all the classrooms? I got this thing today. It just popped up. It's like everybody knows we're going to talk about body cams tonight. So I keep getting this stuff, and it says this right here. It says, should teachers wear body cams like police so parents can see their children's behavior in class? Would that be the implication? If we had body cams and cameras in all the classrooms, would the parents just suddenly be like, oh, I didn't know my kid acted like that? So tell me what you think.
No, I don't think
No.
we're ever going to get them to admit, well, there's a certain portion of the population will say that, denial's not a river in Egypt. It is just like their forte. So like, no, I don't think it would be that. My biggest thing is I don't care about popular opinion. I care that when they threaten to sue, because then I'm able to have concrete proof that a hopefully unbiased judge can see and say, come on, ma'am, or
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. What do you think, Carol?
I think that, yeah, well, I know of a
Are,
certain incident. What were you going to say?
are parents finally going to be enlightened about their
Oh
children?
yeah, absolutely not, unfortunately. The ones that see where their child does wrong are not the ones that we need to worry about the body cam footage or the classroom footage for. I mean,
That's
I
right.
would have the way my classroom is run, I don't have any problem put a camera in there. It's not going to bother me. I'm not going to do anything different than I would if there wasn't a camera in there. However, how parents feel about what their child is doing may be different than how I feel about how their child is behaving. So,
I would agree. I would agree with that. I thought that the pandemic like settled the score forever. That parents finally figured out how it was to be with their kids all day long, and they wanted their kids to go back to school. But I'm not
that
so
didn't
sure that
last
that's
very
true.
long.
It didn't last very long at all, did it?
How
So
No.
quickly they forget.
I think about this. Should teachers wear body cams like the police so that their parents can see what their kids are doing at school? And I got to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to matter. And here's the reason why: is I've had the luxury of sitting in meetings and having to show campus video of things that happen on a campus, and parents watch their kids. And I have learned that there's just some parents that will come up with 500 different reasons as to why whatever I see their kid doing and what they see their kid doing, that's not what actually happened. And I don't know if
Even
you
though
guys have,
even though the camera says so.
even even though the video says so. And I have this phrase, because I have this idea. I'm like, this would be like an episode of The Dumbest Criminals, right? These guys go in, they rob a bank, or they steal an ATM. They're clearly on video. They smile at the camera. And then whenever they get to court, they're like, bro, it ain't me. That ain't me. I didn't do that. That was somebody else. I was with my girl the other night. That wasn't me. That's exactly what I think would happen if we wore body cams. Now, to Doc's point, I think that it's an extraordinarily good idea to have them for the case of a lawsuit where a judge may see things differently. What do you guys think about that?
I think in that situation.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, my internet, of course, was going crazy. I agree. I mean, I think that there are definitely times, like in a court case, that it would be beneficial. But I know in a certain incidents that a camera in a classroom would have definitely been beneficial, where a teacher was accused of something that in the end ended up being false accusations. And had there been a camera to be able to prove it, it would have saved a whole lot of heartache and a whole lot of money and a whole lot of trauma. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So there's definitely times where I think it's appropriate, for sure.
Absolutely.
But do I think it's going to make a difference with parents? Probably not.
There's an awkward silence here.
I know.
So here's the thing. If you're just jumping in, we got a lot of people in the watching the show right now. When you're right there watching, go ahead and tell us. Tell us if you're a teacher. Let us know. Let us know what grade you teach. Let us know your content area and your state, if you don't mind. If it's your first time here tonight, go ahead and drop us a note and let us know that you're a first time viewer. And in case you're wondering, because you may have came in the middle of this is our topic right now. Should teachers wear body cams, or look at that, I don't know how to spell. Or should theory be video in every classroom? That. Oh my gosh. I can't even spell. So I don't know what you guys are going to do about that. Should teachers wear body cams? Let us know down in the chat and tell us what's going on. All right, my name's John, and this is Teacher Talk, and I am back here tonight with my good friend Lisa Pender and Carol Osteen. We are colleagues. We have been together for I don't know how many years now. We enjoy life, and we talked about this a long time ago about doing this podcast and stuff that we do nowadays. And just so that you know, right here, this is all about solutions. That's Doc Pender's website, or that goes, I think, does that go to your website? I think it either goes to her website or it goes to her free product. So go check that out. You can also catch her on her YouTube channel, Doc Pender, All About Solutions. This is my friend Carol. You can see her there. All right, that is her ministry, Rooted in Grace, and I think she's got something here she wants to show us. Look, she makes these little things with her machine. What's that machine called, Carol?
Oh, it's a laser engraver. I wasn't planning on showing it, but I made a little stamp.
Yep, she did. There it is. All right. You're freezing up again. There it is. Good. Show it. There it is. Cool. All right. Check her out. That's her Facebook link right there. Go check her out and see what she's all about. And of course, we got all kinds of free stuff down in the description box and at the QR code there on the screen. Want to encourage you to go grab those. And let's go to the chat. Let's see who's in here tonight. First time viewer. Let's get him up on the screen. Hey, David, thanks for coming in, man. We appreciate it. Thanks. Another viewer from Texas right here. What do we got? Is that Eli? I teach fourth grade English language arts reading in Texas. Howdy, man. How's it going over there in Texas? 10th grade AP right here. David is a 10th grade AP World History, 12th grade Economics. I'm not AP certified, but that is also my field as well as PE. I currently serve as the Dean of Students, which I think stands for, I don't know what that stands for actually. If you end up the Dean of Students, I think you've just really made a mistake in your entire career. What do you guys think?
No.
So tell us what you think. Should teachers be wearing a body cam in the classroom or cameras in the classroom? Hey, I don't know who downloaded our freebie, but appreciate you getting that right there. Thank you so much. It just popped up. Hey, Ripples in the Water. Good to see you. As promised, Doc Pender's back. Everybody's been asking for Pender, and everybody's been asking for Carol, and so both of them are back. Uh, who else we got in there? All right, we're just getting warmed up. I can tell you that. So, one of the things that's happening in education is the idea of social promotion, and I call that the social promotion trap. Are we hurting students by passing them along, even if they're not ready to be passed? What do you guys think? What's everybody think?
Okay.
I I struggle with a no fail policy when you just push students along, but I also understand that you can't have a 30-year-old in 10th grade. So somehow we have to find the balance where the child is getting, or the student is getting an education and being held accountable for being in school, but we shouldn't just push them along.
What do you think, Doc?
Well, agreed. And I think one of the biggest things with the whole pushing along, as with everything, it comes down to numbers, right? Our admins want to make sure our grad rates look good, and we want to make sure our suspension rates aren't that high. And so there's a lot of numbers involved, which again then turns into politics, which bleh. But
Yep.
yeah, so it's pretty messy, but I completely agree. You can't have that 16-year-old sixth grader, even though some of us may or may not have had something very close to that. And because then there's a whole host of things that need to be looked at and dealt with. So it's super tricky in traditional school setup right now. So I think there has to be some super outside of the box thinking. And this isn't like shove them in one classroom and isolate. It's truly thinking outside the box and coming up with something different.
So, what do you guys think about the 50% minimum grade policy?
I agree with it. And the reason I agree with it is when you look at a grading scale, from an F, you have 59 points of failure, and you only have 41 points of passing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a real good point. Now, I took recently, I took the other side of that stand, and I say that when you remove the floor of a zero, then you also remove the ceiling of achievement. And it's not that I think that we should be destroying kids' academic careers, but at the end of the day, they're the one that destroyed it. And so, from that perspective, if I had a kid that was working really hard and just couldn't get the work, or just didn't know how to do the work, or couldn't come up with the grade, I'm going to find a way to get that kid across the finish line.
Right.
But the guy or the girl that comes to school every single day, refuses to work, disrupts the class, is in the office all the time, is out in the hallway on their phone, and they don't do any work, I have no sympathy for the 50 policy. Am I just being too hard?
No,
No,
I see where you're coming from that. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Someone go ahead. So I just think it comes down again to consequences. I know we're going to get into that in a few minutes, so I don't want to jump the gun. But I think each case, we kind of have to look at, we do have some serious issues right now with dysregulation, with attention. And I'm not going to say everybody's ADHD, because they're not. They're training their brains and their nervous systems not to focus, which that's my soapbox for another day.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, for the kiddo that, like you said, is trying, and we need to, one size doesn't fit all, right? So I've got the kid that is a movement kid, and he's constantly doing whatever. I need to kind of give him some strategies that might look a little different than everybody else, but it can help him at least focus to get work done. It's super individualized, and I know not every kid can be individualized, especially when you have 30 something. But I agree. I don't know. I sorry. I just saw somebody said, if the threat of retention was real, they would pull things together. And that's the other side, which is exactly where I was going, of this whole push them through. I actually
Mhm.
had one student one time say, I don't need to work during the year. I come during summer school. I spend 4 weeks here and I'm out and I pass. So, I
Yep.
mean, they are figuring out the system
Yep. I,
that
I
needs to
think
be.
so. I think that there are some kids that that the threat of failure, that it does not even register to them that that's a problem. So it doesn't matter if they have a 0 or a 50, right? Now, I'm not a proponent of the 50 minimum policy per se, all right? But I'm not a proponent of there being 17 and 18-year-old kids in a middle school either. And
Right.
that is a situation that I dealt with personally years ago. I could not believe it. I was, the school that I was at, I showed up and there's a kid 17 years old in the seventh grade. And that's ridiculous. All right. And I got to tell you, I don't think that he should have been promoted either. What I think has to happen is there has to be a way to have hard conversations with parents, even with parents of students that have IEPs, and say, look, you are obviously not going to advance. You haven't done a single thing to make it out of the seventh grade. You got to go somewhere else. Our
I think
legislature,
what you just said with the you haven't done anything is where I agree with you on the fact that the 50 grading scale isn't effective. My agreement with the effective grading practices with 50s is when the kid is trying, when the kid is actually putting forth effort, and it's not I refuse to do it because I can come do it later in a fraction of the time. So I mean, I don't agree with just randomly giving kids grades because they didn't do the work. But I do agree with, and that's where there's a how do you find the balance? But I do agree with the fact that if you have a struggling kid and they have a really, really rough time with a skill or a content, and it tanks their grade, and then they do okay, if their grade is tanked, there's no hope. Then at that point, they give up because
yeah,
they're going to pull an F and they're going to fail.
yeah, I would concede that if I have a student that's working hard, that's turning in work, that's showing up every day, that's not causing troubles, I will concede I'm going to find a way to get that student across the finish line. I think my problem is most students who are retained, they're not retained necessarily because they were working really hard. At least not in 2026. You're retained because you haven't done anything. Lisa, are we're all over the map, but you have yet to throw down the gavel, and we need to hear.
Well, again, I go back to the sense of the way that the system is set up right now and what has been traditionally the case, right? Because even somebody mentioned it in the chat. Typically, especially if a student has an IEP, they're going to have that one retention in elementary and typically that one retention in middle school, and
Hmm.
then promoted.
Yeah.
When we start to look at everything and look at lawsuits and whatnot, that's where we as teachers and admin and staff need to make sure that we provided everything that we were supposed to, all of our
Right.
strategies and everything else. But that's where, if we're going to jump back to classroom cams, but that's where providing that evidence of what happens in a day. I mean, a lot of the times that 17-year
Absolutely.
old in seventh grade is the one screaming and yelling and cutting it up and running out the door.
So you just
But they're also
tied
the
put.
one that needs more support and
So
that they're not getting it from the teacher.
you guys are using prior knowledge of questions to tie back to stuff to answer questions now. Holy cow! My fear is that whenever we promote kids just to promote them, are we accidentally telling them that effort and accountability does not matter? Is
It
that
doesn't
I
exist.
think it sets up a,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I think that it sets up a precedent that harms them later in life.
I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
would I would have supposed that everybody that's in our chat, and I know all three of us are here, and those that are watching, that we would all agree that if we showed up to work and we didn't do any work, or if we were on our cell phones, or if we were causing all kinds of troubles and things of that nature, that at some point the rope would run out. At least in most places of employment, you would run out of rope and you would be cut from that team, right? You wouldn't just
You
be.
would hope so.
You would hope.
In most places, that is the real world, don't you think? And let's go see what our community has to say. First of all, I'll give a few shout outs right here. Uh, Final countdown 3210. First time catching this live. I teach reading and math interventions in elementary school, K to 5. Ripples in the Water says if she had to wear a body cam, she'd be on her best. They'd be on their best behavior right there. And I guarantee, listen, I don't know. I think I would forget about it and I would still be in trouble. But I think ultimately they're a no on it. Okay. Let's see what we got right here. Final countdown. I also used to teach sixth grade, second grade, first grade. We push way too many kids along who have done next to no work all year or were just absent about half of the year. And I tell you, that's something that bothers me right there is this absentee stuff. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I have watched down through the years, and I know you two have been in education about a third longer than I have, of students that don't come to school, they don't work, but somehow they walked across the same graduation stage as everybody else. That bothers me. All right. Here we got one right here. Some kids will never be ready to move, and that is 100% right. All right. Some kids will never make an effort. All right. This one here is going to get us fired up. Tell us what you think. More harm is done with retention that is overused. There are other programs to help students without holding them back. Tell me what you think about that. That's a good point, one that we haven't talked about. What do you think?
I just want to make sure that it's not sending a confusing message. I mean, the elementary school student really, the younger ones kind of understand, but they don't, at least in my experience. Those fifth graders, we all know why they push them on. At least in my experience, what I've seen is one, they're tired of dealing with them, and two, they are honestly afraid, at least what I've seen in admins, to retain in fifth. I've actually heard some people say that there's policy that says that they won't retain in fifth, which I still want to see that. But yeah. So I do agree that there are other programs, and I think that's what I'm really trying to push tonight, is looking at the system as a whole and understanding the broken parts and trying to figure out what should go in each one. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of politics that go into those numbers, and that's where I can't stand bonuses, because a lot of times the bonuses are where we see numbers being skewed too. So,
yep.
So yeah.
Yep, you're right. So here's one. Let's see. Eli, I agree with 50% grading provided that they actually turn something in. I will concede that point. 100% that I would absolutely go along with that. Oh yes, on the cams in the hallway, gym, cafeteria, and etc. Absolutely, we gotta have some security on the campus. I just don't think that I'm in for body cams and cameras in the classroom, because I just think that it's going to get turned around way too easily on us. And I only say that because I've watched that happen. So I could be completely skewed on that. It says, I do believe we're hurting students. Oh no, 30-to-1 ratio, teacher to student ratio is a recipe for failure. David, big hand clap. I got to go over here and find the hand clap for you, man, because that is 100% right. It is hard to take care of. It's hard to take care of 30-to-1, isn't it? Yep. Let's see. Who else we got here? Maybe for some other kids, won't be moved. Parent would sue. Do you think that would happen? Could a parent sue?
Oh, yeah.
If a student wasn't promoted?
Well, it's not if they could. They can sue for anything. I mean, heck, we sue for hot coffee. But yeah, I think they would jump to that, some of them. And some of them have threatened that before, if their kids don't pass. Not saying that
Is
they
that
win.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I know a person could potentially sue if their student had an IEP and they were able to demonstrate that that IEP wasn't being properly implemented, right? But
Correct.
just because a kid doesn't
Correct.
come to school and turn in their work, surely they can't sue, can they? Or can they?
They can. Anybody
I
can
mean,
sue
they
anything.
can sue.
Heck,
It's
we're
whether
in sports.
they win their case. Yeah.
Gotcha. Says we use the Common Core numbers 1 through 4. Ones are issues all the time. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that means. Does anybody know what that means?
It's a
Does that mean they
grading
have a one?
system. If I'm
It's a
not
one.
mistaken, it's a grading
Gotcha.
system that instead of A, B, C, D, F, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Got it. Got it. Got it. All right. Final countdown here. I bet a lot of kids would actually pull themselves together if the threat of retention was real. Kids like you were just saying who just straight refuse to do anything. I think that I'm not sure. I want to be hopeful as well, but it's just been my kind of experience that there are some kids. It doesn't matter what the grade is or what the threat is, they will not give in. In particular, if they believe that there is an easier way out for them. What do you guys think?
I think that goes back to the last time that we were all three together, and it feeds into the parents and what the parents expect.
Hmm.
I think that we worry in the classroom about what's happening, the student
Right.
doesn't worry about what they're doing, and the parent doesn't hold them accountable either.
That's right.
Right.
So Ripples in the Water, I believe, is in California, and they say that we don't do retention here. Retention is very hard to get, and only once in a child's entire career, I guess. That is unbelievable. So if a
And
kid,
then it said no letter grades. I want to know how they do grading.
I would too. I'd like to know more about that as well.
Ripples in
Uh,
the water. You said no letter grades. How do you do school? How do you do grading and scoring of assignments?
yeah. So final countdown. Well, I lost it right there. Let's get it back up. We have a fifth grader who's about to go to middle school. They've been absent almost half the year, and they're performing at a second grade reading level. We are just setting them up for failure. I believe that feeds into the exact idea that I have is are we hurting these kids by passing them along? And I think the answer to that is yes, for a couple reasons. Number one, they don't belong there because they can't perform at that level yet. All right. And number two, we are saying to them that you don't have to meet even the basic minimum standards to get from point A to point B. That's what I think. Anybody else got anything on that?
Ripples in the
And
water said no letter grades in elementary only. Secondary does use them.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, look, I missed one right here. Uh, Teacher Kelly, good to see you again. Thank you for dropping in tonight. I appreciate it. Once again, if you're just now joining us and you haven't told us yet, if you're brand new here, let us know that you're new, and drop us a note and tell us what grade you teach, your content area, and your state if you don't mind, because I'd love to keep up with the amount of states that we're able to reach as Teacher Talk. Last year, I made a 30-second video in like January, and I was kicking rocks down in Carol's office because I couldn't get anybody to watch my video right on TikTok. A half a million people later, Teacher Talk is rolling on, and we want to reach 1 million teachers this year. 1 million teachers is what we hope to reach. So appreciate everybody being out here. Let me tell you a little bit about everybody in case you're just jumping in. This is Doc Pender. She should be on your left. All About Solutions. I think that is a download for her freebie, but it's also down in the description box. So go get that. Her YouTube site. What is it, Doc?
It's Doc Pender's All About Solutions.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this is
and
my
that.
friend.
Sorry.
Go ahead. This is
No,
my
I was
friend
gonna-
Carol, and that goes to her Facebook page. She has her ministry is Rooted in Grace, and she has a laser engraver, and she makes cool stuff. And so you can reach out to her there. And this is down in the description box or here at the QR code. You can get all kinds of free stuff, all types of free resources for teachers. They're just for teachers. So go grab them and check them out. Oh, here we got some more. Man, the community is
Virginia,
wide open tonight.
Chicago, Tennessee.
I can't
Yeah.
keep up. All right, here we got Let's see. Final countdown. Illinois. We also do standard-based grading. 1 means not performing. 2 means approaching the standard. 3 means meet the standard. 4 means beyond the standard. I think I heard somebody talk about that the other day on a show somewhere. Teacher Kelly, special ed preschool in Virginia. Appreciate you. Look at this. Chicago is coming in big tonight, out in the suburbs. Appreciate you. All right, got Lori here. Thank you for dropping in, watching here in Tennessee, second grade. Tell me, what part of Tennessee you're in? I used to live up in the northwest corner of North Carolina, just furthest point you can go north and not be in Tennessee or Virginia. Appreciate you. Thank you for dropping in. Let us know where you're at. Final countdown. Our attendance is cumulative. 15 absences, no matter why, triggers a warning. So we have something like that too, but it doesn't seem to hold. It doesn't always seem to hold a lot of water sometimes, because parents come in and complain about that. Hello from Colorado, one for him. Appreciate everybody jumping in. So check out this question. All right, we're answering all the questions that have been sent in, or well, not all the questions, but as many as we possibly can that have been sent in to Teacher Talk, and we want to talk about gaslighting and liability. Why are teachers being blamed for everything that goes on in the school or all the problems when it's really the teachers who are the ones that are getting hurt? Doc, take it away.
You know my feelings about this. When did it become okay for teachers, even the consideration of teachers getting hurt at school or at their job? And it's become okay. It's almost for a while there, at least for me, it was like a badge of honor. We would compare our scars and our war wounds and what had happened. And it is extremely frustrating, and it kind of builds on what I wanted to tag what we were just talking about. When we look at the system as a whole, I just think teachers hold on so much and take so much responsibility, even for things that are not our responsibility. So yes, while it is it's the teacher's responsibility in that classroom, it's the dean's and admin's responsibility for that campus, but we need to start putting some ownership back on the students and their families. And it used to be a team. I can remember about 10, 15 years ago, my school really felt like a team. We worked together. We would, what's going on at home, let's work on what's going on at school. I worked in it was called a cluster, but it's like a special program for kiddos just diagnosed with autism. But it was so much a team, and we had so many success stories. So many of those kids right now are in college or are working at hospitals. So I think we need to get back to the system, because what's happened is we as school staff are taking on so much of the responsibility, which brings me back to getting beat up at work and, being responsible for things that are so much out of our control.
I don't think that there should ever be a time, even in, on the special ed side, and I know that that's a whole different beast, but I don't think that there should ever be a time where hitting a teacher is acceptable. Am I off track on that? I mean, we deal with that at our school. I mean, we address.
I agree with, teachers should never be in the line of fire to be hit or hurt. However, students should be protected. Yep. So if there's something that can be done to protect yourself as the adult, but also protect the child, it is our responsibility to protect the student. No, I'm not going to get in the middle of a fight and break up a fight. You can't help if a student is combative, but at the same point, there are ways to protect yourself while also helping the child to remain safe.
Mm-hmm. So for the record, I have had to break up I don't know how many fights, all right, in my long education career. And to say that I have been beat up a time or two is an understatement. And, that should not happen. But the fact of the matter is, as Carol said, when students are going at it, if that is the case, I don't think that we have the ability to just stand idly by. And I know that that's going to go wildly different in different directions. But I'm wondering if if the fear of lawsuits and school ratings has created a system where student behavior is excused and teacher safety is sometimes minimized. What do you think about that, Carol?
I would agree with that. My husband is a former SRO, and we've had many conversations as far as regarding putting yourself in the position of being injured, but at the same point, making sure students are safe. And there is a time and a place to know where you have to do your job. And it's not just when students are getting into a fight, it's any time that there are circumstances that could be harmful. But you can't just shrug your shoulders and turn around and walk away and say, well, that kid's having a meltdown and I can't do anything about it. Well, there may be something that you can do without being in the line of them swinging or
Hmm.
kicking. If it just is kind of a thing where you have to know how to handle things and be willing to do it.
So, do you think that it's just easy to blame teachers? I mean, because clearly it must be the teacher that set the kid off, or it must be the teacher that didn't do this right, or the teacher must have said something that was just. Isn't it just easier to blame the teacher than to address the root cause of the problem?
And again, that goes back to partnerships and the fact that it
Yes.
is no longer a partnership, it's us versus them. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when this all comes together of, school, that is teacher and staff, and I'm not, doing anything with that. Well, no, it's all of us working together in order to better the child, or and that's what I used to tell parents all the time. They're only with us 6 hours or six and a half, and then they go
Yeah,
home for all the other time.
yeah,
I can only control what goes on here. So it's funny because the chat's kind of blowing up. So they have
yeah,
a student who attacks so many kids, adults, and this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I'm
yeah,
talking
Right.
about students who run rampant and are taking
Yes.
out people. Um,
yep,
there's a situation right now that I know of somewhere else that a student has beaten people to the point that there's workman's comp claims. People have been,
yes,
4 or 5 have been sent to the doctor, and everybody, is afraid. And we bring up FAPE, free and appropriate education. But let's talk about the appropriateness of this kid who is sometimes taller than some of the teachers, beating the
yeah,
living tar out of them. So
yeah,
that really ruffles my feathers and gets me going because when did it become okay? It's not okay if you act that way on a flight. They kick you off. It's not okay if
Mm-hmm.
you act like that in a hospital. They've got security like there's no tomorrow. They take you out.
that's right,
Like, why is it okay at a school?
that's right.
And I need somebody higher up to answer that.
Yeah. Hey, Carol. So Doc said that there's an us versus them. Number one, do you think there's an us versus them? And number two, who is the us versus them? I'm wondering.
Well, that was going to be my question, was who's the them? Because yeah, sometimes I do feel like there's an us versus them, but I do also agree with free and appropriate education. I do agree with needing to be a team and a partnership, and that team does include home. I don't know that a parent should be shocked or surprised about a behavior that's being exhibited in school when it escalates to this. I'm not so sure that I would believe that that's always going to be a first time occurrence at school.
Right. So does that take us back to question number one? And we need to have body cams and cameras in all of our classrooms so that parents can finally see how their kids behave at school. Uh,
No,
it-
because it's still not going to be their kid, and it's still not going to be,
that's right.
it's
What did you
the
do in this
contributing factor isn't
instance?
going to change.
That's exactly right.
But does it go back to the we're not holding them accountable
Hmm.
and we are not, you know,
Excellent.
I mean, it goes back to all of our other questions that we've answered so far. It
Yep.
all ties together.
It sure does. So, you made an interesting point right there, is because I have had the privilege of sitting with thousands of parents, as many of you have, but I've sit with them in a disciplined context. And in that context, I have watched parents that were frustrated. They were at their wits end, and they would be like, you know what, we're having these same problems at home. I can't get my little Johnny or my little Susie. They don't pay any attention to me. They won't listen to me. But as surely as I'm sitting here, when I call them about their kids' behavior, they know without any facts whatsoever that it couldn't have been their kid's fault. And the very first thing they want to know, I want to see it on video. I want to see it on video. It's like if it didn't wasn't on video, it didn't happen, right? So maybe we do need body cams, or maybe we do need cameras in all the classrooms. I have a healthy fear of that, but what do you guys think? I mean, am I off track here?
No, I think
don't
again
think
it
you're off
goes back
track.
to parents not parenting. It's easier to
Absolutely.
throw the responsibility onto everybody else. And this society as a whole doesn't take responsibility for 90% of their actions. If we
Yep.
just kind of woke up and actually said, "Oh shoot, I screwed up." Okay, now what can we do? But so often we don't even have that. I mean, a lot of the times I spend the entire time with a student just getting them to admit that they messed up.
Yep.
And I'm like, but that's okay because now you learn from it. Now let's do something with that information. Um, and then I have to do it with parents. So it's
It's
just,
true.
Well, I've encountered a couple of different interesting situations with parents in the sense of what their child says. And unfortunately, a lot of times the parent goes with whatever their child says, and that is it. There's no other side to it. There's no his, hers, and in the
Seven.
middle. And it's 6, 7, exactly.
That's right.
And so it becomes a situation where it depends on the adult at the school's relationship with the child. Because if that child is a discipline concern, but there is an adult that child has a good relationship with, the parent hears things totally different from that adult that has a good
Yep.
relationship with their child compared to somebody who doesn't have a good relationship with the
Yep.
student speaking to the parent. And that
Yep.
if that goes back to relationships.
Absolutely. The very thing that we talk about all the time about the number one thing with students is relationships. At the same time, don't let yourself be gaslit as a teacher. If you've got a kid that absolutely will not behave, it's not because you haven't built a relationship. That's on them. But that doesn't negate the fact that relationships are extraordinarily important with students, and they're even equally more as important with parents because parents, by and large, that I deal with, and that probably most of you deal with, they want their kids to be successful, and you have to have the leverage of trust so that whenever you call, they're not like, oh, my kid could never do that, although some do, but they take your call seriously and they hear from you instead of hearing, things that you never said or this, that, and the other. So, Ripples in the Water made a good point up here. All right. It said this: we are easy targets. And isn't it true? It goes to what you were saying, Doc. You go to the hospital and you act a fool, they'll cuff you up, right? You go to the jail and act a fool, they'll put you in solitary confinement. You go into a lawyer's office, you'll be arrested. Here at school, no, no, no. We gotta put up with that. Why is that? So, and the reason why is because we're easy targets. Listen to what we got right here. We are held responsible for the student's mental health. Bang. We are not trained as counselors, therapists. If the kid feels stress or even productive stress, teachers are blamed. All right. So there is a great point. It's one I made in some content. You can catch it. It's over there on YouTube. It's my latest. Actually, it's the last two that I put up. I deal with that very issue is that as teachers, we are being turned into mental health counselors, guidance counselors, psychologists, mothers, fathers, coaches, pastors, anything that you can think of is the role that a teacher is taking on today. And at sometimes the least thing that we do is actually teach because we're tied up on that other stuff. Is that the experience that you guys have as well, or is it just me?
yes, I agree. And I feel bad for a lot of the teachers because they're so caring and so open and honest that
Yeah.
and then they want all the strategies. A lot of teachers have come to me like, okay, what should I do in this situation? And they want my help as a counselor to be able to help the kiddos in their classroom, which I am so thankful for. But at the same time, and I actually, it's funny enough, I was in a meeting, and I did say, look, academics, put it to the wayside right now. We got to get this kiddo here. We got to get that kiddo calm and in class, and we have to make sure the teacher is supported, because it was chaos and bedlam. So, we'll deal with his academics whenever. Right now, we need to focus on get him here, get him calm, and let's get through that day. So we are asking a lot from teachers in that regard.
So here's one right here. Look at this. We evacuated the classroom in first grade due to a violent behavior. The mom said that their kid is showing that. And the mom said their kid is showing that they don't trust me. It's very baffling. So he's making the same point that I was making. The mom knows that it's going on at home, but then they don't believe that it's actually happening at school. And I think about those violent outbursts like that and the effect that it has on a teacher. Carol, you've been around a long time. Tell us, what does it take to recover from a gigantic outburst or fight or something like that for you as a teacher in the classroom?
Willingness to give the child mercy and grace. You can't start and rebuild from a struggle without starting from the beginning and foundation. I mean, we all have struggles, we all have meltdowns in our own way. And just because it happens at school doesn't mean that you can't turn around and start from the beginning and rebuild again and show that you are there for the child, not just going to throw your hands up and say, I'm done, forget it, I'm over it. But, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy, but you have to be willing to put in the work if you want to be able to reap the benefits.
Yep. So I find it sometimes very difficult to recover. I want to say psychologically, after a big event happens on the campus. And
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is about me. Maybe something's wrong with me. Ripples in the Water has a good question here. And the answer to that, Ripples in the Water, is yes. We MTSS academics and behavior. I've recently been told that we shouldn't have tier 3 students on our campus, but as it turns out, that is not correct. We do have tier 3 students on our campus. So let's see here. Laura, I agree. I do more social emotional teaching than I do teaching academics. So absolutely, 100%. And you know what? I think that if you are a kindergarten, first, and second grade teacher, I think that's appropriate. Am I off track here? I can remember as a kid, I was not taking standardized tests in kindergarten, first grade. I never took a standardized test all the way to the point that I graduated, but I graduated in 1990, right? However, I can remember being in kindergarten, learning my phone number and my address, how to tie my shoes, how to make sure I had my clothes on properly, how to be a friend. And my grade,
Life skills.
yes. And my report card, that's exactly what it was. I was graded on how good of a friend was I? How good of a citizen was I? How well was I at organizing things? How well did I put things away? How did I play with others? I wasn't given a grade on rating and math that I can remember. It seems like as a system, we want to skip foundational and fundamental skills and just jump right to the academic portion. And
I
if
think it's
there's
Dr. Phil that says, how's that working?
yeah, how's that working out for us? Not very well. I mean, I think about I spent many years as a varsity coach, whether it was basketball, football, softball, or baseball. And there was never a day that we didn't practice fundamental skills. And I remember whenever I coached baseball, they used to get so mad about it. And I'd say, you know what? The best players in the world, baseball players in the world, Major League Baseball players, they take 6 weeks every year to do nothing but practice fundamental baseball stuff. That's how important it is. We cannot skip these fundamental things. Doc, are we skipping fundamentals to jump to academics, and how's that working out for us?
Exactly. Yes. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing the long-term ramifications of that decision. We've gone so into this just academic push that we're not reaching the whole child developmentally.
That's
And
right.
I agree because Lori mentions how second graders can't seem to dress themselves, tie
Yeah.
their shoes, etc. One of the biggest things when people came to our cluster was the first thing I would say when it was a parent tour is I don't care if your kid can read on a third grade level. Do they know where their lunchbox is? Can they open their own containers? Can they use the restroom by
Yeah.
themselves? Can they find their backpack? Like, we're
Yes.
not even teaching independence anymore. What we're doing instead is we don't want our kids to ever be uncomfortable. So I think a lot of this mama bear, papa bear, parent denial comes in because they don't ever want their kid to feel any kind of
Yeah.
discomfort.
That's right.
And it is ruining society.
Absolutely.
100% right.
100%.
So I may be wrong, but I refer to these as lawnmower parents. And so what I mean is any little obstacle that gets in the way of their kid, right? They come in and just run it over like a lawnmower.
Hmm.
And they are unintentionally, out of the deep feelings that they have for their children,
Yes,
they are unintentionally sabotaging their kid's future.
Absolutely.
hmm
Absolutely.
As a kid, my parents didn't step in front of me a lot. I really wish that they had have, but they didn't, and they let me reap the consequences of a lot of things that even still today, cause me problems. But they let me learn, and that was a big deal to me. I think, and I feel like we're on the one hand taking these foundational and fundamental things and we're jumping over top of them straight to academics, but then we have parents that just will not let their kids deal with the consequences. They want to come in and just get it all out of the way so that they don't have to deal with it. Ripples in the Water puts it right here. I despise this gentle parenting and education's consequences are real life.
hmm
100%. 100%.
100%.
With that being said, have we confused restorative justice and restorative practice with no consequences at all? Carol, what do you think?
I'm not so sure I 100% understand the question. I think that there's a place for restorative justice. I think that there's a place for restorative problems. Um, but I also think that when we just send a kid back to class with candy repeatedly, we're doing them harm. I know that there
Yes.
has to be steps to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that sometimes we do have to be willing to give the child a chance to fix a
Mm-hmm.
problem. But the
Mm-hmm.
key is that we have to make sure that they are actually fixing the problem.
Yep, we sure do. Doc, what do you think?
Well, and again, it's about addressing the situation and understanding that we can still break it down to make sure that we learn the lesson, but it doesn't mean we have to escape the consequence. They can go
Right.
hand in hand. We can still learn, use that teachable moment. We love that phrase, but being able to learn from that, whatever that situation was, and then be able to have the consequence because life is consequences no matter what. There's natural consequences for everything. And that takes us back to the whole retention question. A natural consequence, if I don't do my job, is I don't get paid. Well, if
That's
you
right.
don't do the work, you don't get to move forward
You
with
don't get
whatever it
paid.
might be.
That's
You don't
right.
get
I,
paid.
I
Ripples in the Water said there's a danger that if that there is a danger if consequences are never given. And I agree 100% with that. We
Yeah.
have to, I mean, consequences have to be given.
Yes. If you do a restorative practice correctly, you will restore whatever relationship is broken and you will hand out a consequence with
Hmm.
that. Now, it could be that since those students or student participated in the process, that the consequence is not quite as heavy,
Right.
right? But there's still a consequence. I can remember whenever I was a kid, it was right after the Super Bowl. Cincinnati Bengals lost, and I was taking my girlfriend, Mary Jemison, home. and it was snowing. I mean, it was ice and it was bad. And I came up around the corner and I crashed my truck into the bank and she nearly went through the windshield. It's honest truth, right? And you know what? The cop showed up and he was going through the thing. All I did was tear up my vehicle and bump her head a little bit, right? But you know, he wrote me a ticket. And he says, you know what? He says, you are being cited for your speed for the conditions. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? The road is ice. It wouldn't matter how fast I was going. And he's like, yeah, it wouldn't have. You're in the ditch. So obviously you weren't doing it right. And I had to go to court as a kid, and I got an $80 fine as a kid, 16 years old, 17 maybe. So was there a restorative practice? Well, yeah, that's what the court hearing was all about, where I can go and say, hey, this is what I did. I wasn't, did I get thrown in jail? No. Did I have to have a consequence? Yes, I did. And man, I hated that. I hated that, but I've never, ever, ever forgotten that. And I think that we have to have that. So let's see, right. Let's see what we got. I got to get caught up. We've had so many people in the chat. There's so many folks watching tonight. I can I just stop to tell everybody how blown away I am. Again, I tell this story all the time. Lisa and Carol are both my friends. We worked together until one of us took off and did something else. We won't say which one of those it was. We won't say,
I don't
but
know who that could be.
it was both of them that encouraged me to get this thing going and all this other stuff. And they watched me kick rocks and be mad because I couldn't get anybody to watch videos and this and that and the other. And Doc and I, we did a podcast. She was the first one to ever come on and do it with me. We did it, and I put it up on YouTube. And I said, Doc, YouTube says we suck. Nobody's watching it. And she says, it just takes time. Okay, and it did, and it's taken off. And there's so many people. I appreciate you so much. Giving up, an hour or so on your Sunday nights and coming out and hanging out with us. But let me get up, try to get caught up right here. I know that I don't have everybody. I think families and parents need to step up. Okay. I think you're 100% right, Laura or Lori. We got to have more parents, understand that they need to become the first line of teacher in their students' lives. They do not need to relinquish the role of forming their kids to us. They need to be involved in this process. It's one of the things that Florida has done down here. I'm not sure it didn't go a little too far, but the idea is right. Let's see here. Schools are having teachers gently teach, similar to gentle parenting. No consequences, just conversations. And absolutely 100%. We see a lot of that going on. I guess I never thought of courts as restorative. Well, I mean, there was damage done. Ripples in the water. You think about a court. If I run into Carol tomorrow in the parking lot and I don't want to make good on it, she's going to have to take me to court, and there things are going to be restored, right? There's going to be justice served right there. So, there it is. Hey, Teacher Kelly, you're absolutely right. It takes time to grow. It takes time to grow. Oh, look, Ripples in the Water's working on YouTube too. She's building an audience, and I appreciate that. It's hard. It's hard to wait. It really is. But I tell you, it happens in a moment, and then the next thing you know, you don't know what to do. And that's exactly the way I was. So, what do you think? Is self-care the system's way of avoiding fixing an impossible workload? And what I mean is, do our districts and our admin and our politicians just say, hey, you need to practice self-care so that you can stay in this for a long time? And that's their way of saying, we're never going to change the workload that you have. Am I on to something there, or are our viewers on to something? Because that's where it came from.
Well, I think okay. I'm going to ride a fence here. So yes, I think self-care has become maybe a little cliche in society right now as far as like a buzzword or a term. Um, but I think it's super, super important. So I'm okay with it being brought up a lot, especially if it's through admin. I hope that admin understands the importance of teachers taking care of themselves and also providing opportunities um, for them to take care of themselves. But yes, I think it can also be weaponized against us in the sense of, well, you seem pretty stressed out. Are you taking care of yourself? You got to make sure you're, with the self care. And it's like, So I do feel that it has a place in education today. It has a place in everybody's life. I think we play Tetris with our time and try to fit everything into a spot. Our society is on, 125 miles an hour go. There was actually, I saw an article the other day about some people, and they had lived past 100, and one of the common themes that they heard was to slow down, and that when we slow down, when we're able to eat slower, speak slower, move slower, like just to really consciously bring ourselves down a bit, that does help tremendously in so many different
Mm-hmm.
ways. And I think as teachers, um, I know that my doctor one time laughed about teacher bladder. They're like, you guys never stop. Like you guys are constantly running and doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if we could take care of ourselves um, in that sense and understanding self-care, at least owning part of it, because other people aren't going to do it for us. So again, like I said,
I
it's a little
agree.
sense writing.
So, Carol, one of the things that I'm convinced of is I'm convinced that education is built upon the prerequisite that teachers are going to work unpaid overtime. And so when teachers are expected to sacrifice their nights or sacrifice their weekends, even in some cases sacrifice their family to be considered a good teacher, is that dedication or is that exploitation? Which one is it?
I mean, that's a tough question because for many, many years, I was that teacher that things
Mm-hmm.
at home were done, things were taken home, and I didn't worry about what I wasn't getting because of it.
Hmm.
However, when I realized the toll that it took on my family, and I realized what I was missing out on because of the amount of load that I was taking home with me, and that I didn't have to do that. I realized that there were things I could change in my school day and be able to be a little bit more
Hmm.
productive and not have as much to take home. And
Hmm.
then things still happened. I'm still a dedicated teacher. I'm still a good teacher, but I very rarely bring anything home. And it did take a while to get to that point, but it took some damage to get to that point.
Does. It does take some damage. So I can't help this right here, but I want to put this up on the I want to put this up on the screen.
Yes,
Um,
good.
Final Countdown says, I had an admin tell me that there aren't enough hours in the contract to do all the requirements just at school. Okay, then how will I have time to take care of myself? Okay, that's why I asked the question, is this dedication or is it exploitation? Because I don't know of a teacher or an admin one that doesn't know that you can't do all your work in your contract hours. Doc, you had your hand up.
Oh, because this is just, oh. Okay. So if you keep doing outside of your contract hours, they will keep giving. It's that
Right.
simple, guys. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Um,
Boundaries.
yes, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries.
Yep.
So
Boundaries.
about 10, 12 years ago, I was told I watched an office absolutely explode because a certain requirement couldn't be done. So the guidance counselors were freaking out, admin was freaking out, everybody was running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Not me, because no, it's not mine. But and I looked right at admin and I said, the longer you keep getting this done, right? So that you can check your
Mm-hmm.
box, the longer district is going to look at you and just say, do it. They're never going to give you additional support. They're never going to give you any kind of help. They're just going to insist that you keep doing it because you do keep doing it. So I go back to just, again, establishing boundaries, understanding that you are not required to do that. And if it comes down to it, that's when you have to get maybe other people involved. I love emails. I've told you guys that a million times. Make
Use
sure that
guys.
use guys. I know. Suddenly I'm like New York, and
Sounds like my cousin Vinny.
I've never even been there. Right, the two of you. So and so, but when we look at it again, if you keep doing what you've done, you're going to keep getting what you've got. So
That's right.
don't get shocked. Don't get shocked if they keep piling on you. So
So
that's
And
what
guess
we
what happens when you say no and you stop? They find somebody else to do it.
they
Amen.
do. There's all kinds of people that can do it. Listen, Final Countdown is on a roll tonight. If self-care is the solution, then pay our health care for us. I say amen. All right. Many people can't afford therapists and counselors, but yes, we do need self-care. I want to take just a moment right there. Final Countdown. And I would like to say that right here at this link, all right, or at this place, if I can even figure out what in the world I'm doing, I think I deleted my own. Listen, if you'll scan that or go to or I deleted my own stuff. If you'll scan that or jump down in the description box, guys, you can book a discovery call with me, and you got to be quick because they're getting away. All right, or right here, all about solutions, Dr. Pender. Right, you can reach out to her. You can go to her YouTube. Her email will be down in the description box too. You could book a discovery call with her as well. Okay, Doc, you had your hand up. What was you? I can't believe I deleted my own stuff.
It makes me giggle. So again, I know it's not saying that you have to have a therapist, and that's another reason that we're here. We give a lot of strategies and a lot of support of different things you can do. And again, it's time to do something differently. If you keep it's just this huge thing that I'm going to keep beating into y'all's head, that it's time to do something differently if you want something differently to happen. Also, understand that all your schools have EAP programs, and there's a lot of counseling opening up right now,
Yeah.
especially virtually when it comes to EAP programs. There's thankfully funding finally going into mental health. So we are starting to the pendulum's swinging a little bit. But understand that you have EAP programs, you have channels like this, we have strategies to help you. You can book that call. I have an encouragement call that you could book as well. Again, these are free. These are just like intros, just to kind of get an idea and kind of be able to help you a little bit find some resources that you might enjoy, that might be helpful. But it's a little bit more individualized because right now we're talking very general. So there's a lot of resources out there. Don't think that it just has to be a paid counselor or therapist.
That's right. Ripples in the Water says it's exploitation if it's expected. I actually agree with that. If you hire somebody for a job and you give them a contract of 7.5 hours or 8 hours, but you knowingly know that it's going to take at least 15 or more extra hours per week to actually do that, and you know you're not going to pay them, I agree with you, Ripples in the Water. You're 100%. You're 100% right. Final countdown. 100%. I left the classroom, become an interventionist. Now I just do my groups and go home. Man, I'm telling you what, you got it right there. You got it. Let's see what Ripples in the Water has to say. It says, I have systems in place that help me be done by 3 p.m. Good on you. And drop it when you go. I only stay if I want to. My admin never asked me to stay unless I'm on a committee. I just wouldn't be on the committee. I just got to tell you. I'm done with committees. Oh my, left special ed to go back into the classroom for less work. I promise you that is 100% right. Listen, the teachers that work with the special ed kids, first of all, you're heroes, right? Number two, it's my favorite class to go into. I love those kids, but they are a lot. It takes a lot of work. Goes on to point out, just do what they can do. And, hey, cluster coach, good to see you. Hadn't seen you in a while. Good to see everybody. Man, this is so exciting. So who is taking care of the quiet well-behaved kids? We've talked about so much. We've talked about body cams. We've talked about self-care for teachers, and we've talked about the rowdy students and how much time they consume. So at the end of the day, who's taking care of the kid that falls between the cracks? Who does that? Tell us.
Well, typically, unfortunately, no one. But I will say, again, like I just mentioned a minute ago, there's a lot of attention and finally funding going into mental health, just reform. We're finally getting mental health back into our schools, and we're getting funding, which means we're getting mental health back into our schools. So we do have some things in place for those kids that fall through the cracks. And we do have some screening tools and some other, again, things in place that we can identify students and kind of make that connection where ultimately before that we wouldn't have, because we didn't have either the people or the platforms in place.
Carol, do you think as teachers, I mean, we want to advocate for all students, but do you think that we really need to advocate for the middle ground kid, the kid that comes to school, does their work, turns their stuff in, doesn't disrupt the class? Do we really need to focus in on those middle ground kids?
Those kids definitely need to not be forgotten about. I know that sometimes it's really hard. I always try to tell people you need to pick your battles. When it comes to the classroom and a kid comes in and they're acting out and it's out of character, it's not normal, you don't know what happened that morning for that kid. Is it worth it to just sit there and hound that kid for their behavior, or do you kind of give them a little bit of a chance to break, get themselves together?
Yep.
Maybe they need the time. I had a student at one point come in, literally just put head down, didn't have anything to say, didn't want to talk to me, nothing. And when I
Right.
went and talked to that student, I said, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Nothing's going on. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to check back with you in a few minutes because obviously something's going on. You're not wanting to, have your head up or anything. And I just told the student, I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. And at the end of that 5 minutes, we either need to talk so I can understand that you're okay and know what's going on, or, maybe you'll a little bit better and you get ready to work. And at the end of that 5 minutes, the kid was already working.
It's ready to roll.
So, I mean,
timer works
you got to
wonders.
know how to handle the situations. Absolutely.
Yep. So,
Absolutely.
one of the things that really bothers me is in education, there is so much effort, at least academically and behaviorally, put into the lowest quartile. The lowest quartile. We want to focus on the lowest quartile. We want learning gains there, or we want behavior improvements there. And in the midst of that, I really believe that the middle ground kid gets overlooked. The high achiever's okay, but the lower quartile gets it. That middle kid just doesn't get it. And so I'm wondering if most of the teacher's energy goes into crisis management and academically trying to save these kids, are we unintentionally teaching average students that the only way to get attention is to act out or to fail? Are we doing that?
In some situations,
I mean, it
we
can
are.
happen.
Yeah. But I like Ripples in the Water said that, or wait, was it? Wait, I just lost it. Yes. Like how
Ripples in the
there
water
are,
just hit my heart with that.
I know.
Which one is
that,
it?
they have so many quiet kids. Yes. Perfect.
There we go.
On the same page. And I do like, and that's something I think is such a great point. So thank you for bringing that up. So many times we say they don't get attention, and we think it's got to be a pizza party or an ice cream thing or a special event or all this kind. It doesn't. It's the little things that make the biggest difference. It's the smile. It's the thumbs up. It's a Post-it note. It's making a comment. Hey, I like that shirt. Have you ever watched that show? And just kind of just anything that's small.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be these huge gestures, and I think that's super important to remember.
I
It goes with
agree.
knowing your kids,
Mm-hmm.
knowing your kids, and knowing what's going to make a difference with them. Because some kids, they do need to have things front and center. They do need to be the spotlight because maybe at home they never get the attention. Other kids, they don't even want you to draw attention to them, but those little sticky notes that you slide on their desk or those thumbs up that you give them, yeah, those are the things that hit home with them. So it's knowing your kids and knowing what they need. And that does get hard, but when you're wanting to do what you're there to do, you kind
Right.
of you got to work to find those connections again.
So check out what One for Him just put in the box. Michael Lennison book on classroom management talks about treating all kids equally and not giving the different students more attention than those middle of the road students. I think that's right. And I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how to do that. Now, and I'm going to just say the reason why is because the lowest quartile demand with their behavior, with their lackadaisical attitudes, they demand that they get more of our attention. It's negative attention for sure, but they by their very behaviors and actions get all the attention. So how do we divide that up equally, Carol?
I go back to it. You have to know your kids because I mean, when I work with lower quartile students, yes, a lot of them may be, ones that they're struggling, and so their reaction is behavior. But it's not
Hmm.
necessarily because they're a behavior problem. It's because they don't understand what's happening. They don't
Right.
understand the material. They've hit a wall of frustration. And so then that does carry into mental health. And then that does
Hmm.
carry into shutdown. And then you're not doing anything to help the child when you're feeding into their frustration. So I mean, I don't have the answer to that other
I don't
than
either. Yeah.
do. I mean, I just know sometimes you got to give a kid a break
Yeah.
on a rough day. If they're not doing anything to harm somebody and they're not harming themselves and they're not causing you to not be able to teach your class, sometimes you just have to ignore something and give them a chance to have a day.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean write a referral, doesn't mean call the office. It
Yep.
means we all have bad days. We all need time where we just get a chance to sit around and just decompress and chill. Why can't they have that if it's not going to harm your class?
That's right. Doc, how do we spread the love?
I think the first thing is just awareness. Like, take a look at how you're interacting with kiddos in your class. Take a look at where you are spending the most time. Sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, I became almost fixated on the one that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do because I couldn't control what was going on. And then that
Hmm.
was my own battle. So I had to step back. But awareness, I think, in this situation is key.
Yeah.
That's where things like the popsicle sticks, I don't care if you write, you jot down how many times you call on certain kids, whatever it might be. But I think awareness is the first step to figuring out what things you might need to tweak.
Check out this comment right here from Sarah. I feel a classroom clear keeps the students safe, but gives the students who's acting out all the attention. I think that's true.
Okay. Yes and
I
no.
agree that I agree that it keeps the students safe, but it absolutely gives them all the attention.
It does, but if it's done correctly, it does not. Because if I can pull all my kids away from watching that behavior, whether it's into another classroom, into a hallway, whatever, their whole peer audience is gone. And now whoever steps in is just keeping the situation safe. And God willing, they're not speaking to the student like, okay, Johnny, like this is, oh, you got to go pick that up. Why are you doing this? No, we should be silent, walking in just to have, and we can use visuals at that time and gestures, but it is not a time where we are trying to talk to a kid in crisis. We are just manning the situation and removing the kids who might also be triggered by this behavior. Oh, I can't stand that word, but we don't want those kids to have to live through such a stressful event. So I'd rather have them out. I understand what you're saying, but when my daughter was in kindergarten and there was a kid flipping desks and throwing chairs, I'm glad they did room clears because I didn't need her having to deal with that day in and day out. And then it became just kind of like a, okay, and they were excellent. They would just pick their stuff up and go to the other room.
So
It,
I definitely want the room cleared too. I mean, we definitely clear rooms. I just had never thought about it in the way that Sarah brought it up, and I agree that she's right. Now, I think though, if that room has to be cleared, when we come back and we're going to do our restorative practice, because eventually that student's going to come down, they're going to cry, they're going to realize what they did. When we get to that point and we have the restorative part of things, that's when the consequence has to come.
mm-hmm.
Right then, right? It can't be, whatever excuses we can come up with to let them off the hook,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Otherwise, they go back for the same attention. Carol, am I on track here?
You are. I mean, I agree with that. I've experienced classroom clears,
Yeah,
and
me
I mean,
too.
I understand the perspective of it's a hindrance, but at the same point, I think it goes with how you handle them. I mean, if
Hmm.
you make them a big deal, then that's a different story. But if you can, again, it goes back to relationships. I know everybody probably gets tired of hearing that, but that's my soapbox. If
Yeah.
you have relationships with your students to the point where they know you're removing them because it's what's best for them, including the student that you're clearing them from, then you can continue teaching, like you said, Lisa, doing that in the hallway or in another location. Just because you're clearing them doesn't mean that classroom instruction stops.
So that's a good point right there. That whenever you clear the classroom, assumably, presumably admin has come in and you're in the hallway or whatever, if you just went about your business, that would let students know, hey, we're not going to get caught off track on this. Now, look at what one for him says right here. Look, he says, when we started doing classroom clears, it led to increased behaviors. And I think that's a distinct possibility. And
Absolutely.
that's why I wanted to say earlier, when that classroom clears over and that student he begins to de-escalate and you can finally talk to him or her, that's when you got to drop the consequences. And you can't be soft-hearted right there and have some mom crying on your shoulder about how they got this problem, they got that problem. Okay, we all got problems, but here's the thing. You're going to the house for the next few days, and I get it. Okay, everybody says suspension doesn't solve a thing, and I'm not so sure that I'm pretty sure I agree with that. But suspension is not intended to solve anything. What suspension says to the student and to the parent is that there are boundaries at this school, and right now you've crossed the boundary, and so you are not welcome here. That's what a suspension says. And when you communicate things that way, and I have on many occasions, all right, people begin to understand that when you cross boundaries, you are not welcome as part of this organization or a part of this family. Am I nuts, right? Or have I just turned into uh, a grouchy old man who happens to be the dean of students and deals with teenagers every day? What am I? Tell me.
No,
Anybody?
I think that's
I
correct.
think you're
But
on track. I think you're right.
Yeah, I do too. Now, so he goes on to
yeah,
point out, but the sped
okay.
teacher gave the student lots of attention and snacks before bringing the other students back in. Okay, that is a problem.
That's
That's a
my
problem.
point.
That's where the
So
problem
then
All
lies.
these
right.
room
That's the
clears are
problem.
not being done correctly. These
Uh,
room clears are not
there you
being
go.
done correctly.
Hundred
Exactly.
It
percent.
Yep.
now we're going to see whenever we put any kind of strategy in place, behaviors are going to go up before they go down, right? We need that extinction burst. We understand that. But when strategies are not working, we have to look at how they're being implemented. And that is exactly that point right there. And that's when room clears. Because trust me, I've seen a number of room clears be extremely successful, and then I've seen them dumpster fires, just insane. So it goes back to what I talked about earlier. It's keeping programming, it's keeping those kids that fall through the crack, right? They're not the
Yes,
lowest, they're not the highest. It's keeping them in programming and understanding that we're not going to be part of that. We're going to go over here. It's letting that student know you are no longer part of this class right now because you have chosen to act like this, and it's not talking and it's not reinforcing. It's
that's right.
again, it's keeping
Yep.
everybody safe, removing the audience, and then providing the consequence.
100%. I am 100% for that. Hey, whoever just downloaded our free resource, appreciate you doing that. Thank you. So I had no idea that an hour and 24 minutes ago that we would still be here, and yet here we are. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. I hope that our community has enjoyed it, and we hope that it's been helpful for you. There are all kinds of things, resources again down in the description box or the QR codes that we've put up on the screen. Want to encourage you to go get those. Reach out to Carol and reach out to Lisa, and become a part of their communities as well. We're here to support you. But I wonder, before we go, Carol, if you had the opportunity, because the entire United States is actually watching this podcast right now. And so if you had the opportunity to speak to every teacher of the entire United States, which you do, what would you say?
Do I get to say my normal thing?
You can say whatever you want.
Don't give up. Your kids need you. And schedule your colonoscopy if you're 45 years or older, because it could save your life. It saved mine.
That's right. Lisa, what would you say?
Just the same thing, except not the colonoscopy, but yes, I agree.
But they need to.
I just want to encourage everybody to understand that they don't need to stay where they are. Like, you don't need to stay stuck. If you feel stuck right now, you don't need to stay there. There's options,
Right.
There's choices, and I'm not saying physically moving, but
That's right.
I'm talking about a mental shift. Let's
Mindset,
look at what's going on, right? And you have a whole team here that is super willing to provide resources and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're ready to do something differently, let us know, and we're here to help.
That's right. Listen, here's what I would say. First, go home. When the contract is up, go home, because your family needs you. You need
100%.
to be able to rest. Number two, if you have days to take them every once in a while. And I'm guilty. I have like 600 hours of time off,
For sure.
but take them. Number three, spend time with the people that you love and the people that love you. And here's the reason why, is because they won't give you a pink slip, but your employer will. And most of all, what I really want you to do, and I think YouTube wants you to do this, is there's a couple of videos right up here that goes a little bit more in depth with some of the things that we've been talking about. I want you to watch those, but I also want you to stay strong and keep teaching. Now, community, do you have any questions for the experts? Because those are the experts over there. If we don't have any in the next couple minutes, we're going to bug out, because I cannot believe we've been here for an hour and 30 minutes. Going to get us all in trouble, right? Oh, look here. Collapse, education, unfiltered. I feel so sorry for the average kids. I do too, because they are the middle ground student crisis in American education.
But then let's flip it and do something for the quote unquote average kids.
I
Let's see
think
the
Say
difference
it's our
for
job
the
to
average
not.
kids.
Yes.
what can we
It's our
do?
job not to forget about them.
We
So-
can't forget about them.
No, but we could do all sorts of things. Do I need to bring up mama? So you can be that meaningful adult, or you can start that meaningful activity. That is something that Miller talks about frequently, is mama, meaningful adult or meaningful activity. So you can be part of that, or part of encouraging that. I know that I've seen all sorts of clubs started before. I've seen fishing clubs, I've seen robotics, I've seen art clubs, I've seen book clubs.
Yeah.
And again, that's going past our time, but just trying, unless you do clubs, you have a club day at your school. And also just giving that smile or giving that compliment. Maybe it's the awareness. Be aware of if you are kind of focused all on one kid or something else. Like I said, I had to, that was a big wake up call for me. So I really make a concerted effort to make sure I'm seeing everyone. Yes, I love that.
Yes. So we may have to visit the one size fits all model of public education. Many other countries operate a tiered system, and I don't think they're wrong. So listen, collapse. That is one. Hey, ripples in the water. You have a good night. See you next week. So that is an issue that I've talked a little bit about here recently. Is I think that education should be compulsory K-8. I think it should be mandatory. But I think at the freshman year, there needs to be a reevaluation of the student. And some students are going to want to go on, and they're going to have the already have the academic acumen to where they can be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor or an architect or things of that nature. And I think that we have to find a way to push them on the right track, get them prepared adequately for college, because that's not happening today. I mean, that's why every student, I mean, even the Ivy League students that go to college, they end up in remedial math and remedial ELA, right? And then I think we have to look at other students and say, you know what? You're probably not college material, so let's give you a different track. All right, if it was up to me, it would have been it'd be an apprenticeship of some sort in a trade school. Both Carol and my son went to one of our local community colleges, dual enrolled while they were in high school. They graduated high school. They were professional welders, for a lack of better words. They had every welding certification that you can get. I absolutely believe that. Get them in a different track that requires less to graduate, and find them a trade or a job or entrepreneurship that they are better suited for. What is anybody think? Am I nuts about that?
No, we had that in Key West when I graduated down there a little while ago. But unfortunately, and it was college and career track. So by the time you got to ninth grade, you took the test in eighth grade. By the time you got to ninth grade, you knew
Yeah.
which one. And we actually had students that did similar to CTE, where they would come to school for X amount of hours, then go work X amount of
Yep.
hours. We had kids graduating certified with like drywall and
Yep.
tile and construction. And they went on, I can tell you a few that are owning businesses now that are
Yep.
making tons of money.
Yep.
But now they don't do it anymore. And why
And
don't they do it? Because there's money in graduation rates and all
that's
this
right.
other nonsense.
That's right. Everybody wants to talk about and make up this, and I see you one for him, and I'm going to get to that. We're going to pop that up here in just a minute. There is everybody wants to talk about this
Yes.
the school to prison pipeline. All right. Well, there's adequate research to demonstrate that there is no school to prison pipeline, but there's adequate research to demonstrate that there is a public school to public college pipeline. That is a real deal. And that is the whole goal. Higher education wants us to somehow convince students
Mm-hmm.
that they have to go to college, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a degree that many of them will never use, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother story. So one for him points out right here. I'm going to put this off on Carol. How can we get all work done in contract hours? What if you get non-renewed because of it?
Why you gotta put it back on me?
Because you're the one that said you're going home into contract hours. I didn't say that.
That's because you told me I had to.
I did tell
Um,
you that.
I mean, it took some time, and I mean, I think it's a understanding that your time spent at school needs to be productive. And one for him, I can't speak on how your day goes at school. I realized that I spent a lot of my time at school doing fluff stuff
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
instead of using my time at school to be productive and eliminate having to take stuff home. And so I kind of had to evaluate what I was doing and see where I could do it. Now, I don't stick strictly to the contract in the sense that I do come in a little bit early, but I find that coming in early is a more productive time for me than staying late. And I am able to get some things done that I otherwise wouldn't have to take home with me. So, yes, I do. I guess I go against the contract because I do come in a little bit early, but that works for me, and I'm not taking away from my family by doing that.
That's right. One for him. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I have never gotten all of my work done in a contract hour, in contract hours, even when I was working myself to death. I still didn't have it all done.
But it was
And
still there the next day.
I was still there the next day. The work was still there the next day. And I know that there is there's the fear of being non-renewed, but I guess one of the things that I would like to say is that, teachers are non-renewed for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it's just because the person doing the renewal and non-renewal just doesn't like us. And that's unfortunate. I would also point out that, you know, there's nobody like waiting outside the door for your job. That's the good news right there. They're not lined up. So I want to encourage you, like Carol said, you probably are going to have to put some things in place. The one thing that I would say is pick 2 days out of the week and say, I'm going to work contract hours only on these days. I always like to pick out like Tuesdays and Fridays. I mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, Monday you come to work, it's a train wreck, right? Tuesday things have leveled out a little bit. You can take some time off, and or Wednesday and Friday, whatever it is. Definitely Fridays. Start with 2 days and then work, your system a little bit so that you can get those extra days, so that you don't have to be there. Here's a good one right here. Glendon Edge. The problem is parents want them to go to college against their will or aptitude. That is a problem from time to time, isn't it? Sometimes it's just the parents that want them to go to college. And hopefully, if there's any students listening here, I want you to know that you don't have to have $100,000 worth of debt
Facts.
to make $100,000 a year. You don't. You really don't. You can graduate high school and walk directly into a near six-figure job while somebody else is off spending their future. All right. I got my TAs to help. Oh yeah, teacher Kelly tag. Teacher Kelly right there. She's got her teaching assistants to help use my playing time wisely. Occasionally, it's inevitable though. It is inevitable sometimes, and even though I'm committed to it, and Carol's committed to it, and Doc's committed to it, there are going to be days where stuff pops up, and you just got to take care of it. I mean, it's
Well, and I'm going
either,
to chime in when it comes to grading papers. You don't have to grade every single thing that a kid does.
nope.
And I think a lot of times that's where we spend a lot of our time. And I don't know, if that's the situation here, but it was a huge release for me when I realized I don't have to grade every single thing that a kid does. And sometimes looking over it and talking and having the kid look over it is all that needs to be done. There are some things that definitely need to be graded, but every piece of paper that a kid touches does not have to be graded. And
That's
everything that you
fact.
look at does not have to go in the grade book.
That's a fact. And even though it is not best practices, you can set up your grade book in such a way to where work turns into participation grade. Right? You can set that up in such a way to where you kind of work around that just a little bit, and you should, because as Carol said, not everything needs to be graded. All right? It does need to be assessed and feedback given, but it doesn't need to be graded. Well, I got to tell you, I'm wore out. An hour and 37 minutes. That's a record for us. And so, if it's okay with Teacher Talk Community, which has been fire tonight, I mean, fire, we're going to cut out and we're going to go home. So, we want you to have a good night and have a great